Caught on New Year's Eve. Burak gives Neslihan a clear response. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Turkish Spotlight Secrets. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe and support the channel, my dear friends. Now, let's talk about a name whose silence has always been louder than anyone else's words, Burak. For years, he's been the kind of star who keeps his private life guarded, who smiles and walks past questions about love, who prefers gestures over explanations. But that quiet approach shattered in a single night. Why now? And why, of all moments, on New Year's Eve? For months, whispers tied Burak's name to Neslihan. The moment their paths visibly crossed again after a long gap, the internet lost its breath. Comments multiplied, fan edits spread, and conspiracies bloomed. Was it just nostalgia from an unforgettable on-screen pairing reawakened, or a new chapter finally opening? Tonight we answer the questions that wouldn't go away. Because one photograph taken in the freezing glow of a Bulgarian ski resort cut through months of chatter with a message that didn't need a caption, enough guessing. Here is the truth. Who stood by him in that dazzling white silence? Neslihan. The two of them, together, embracing the first hours of a brand new year, sharing the kind of unguarded calm that feels impossible under the spotlight. The couple, who have quietly built their bond away from the rush of headlines for close to a year, chose that night to let the world see what their friends had already sensed. This wasn't a rumor to keep spinning. It was a story to be told. So, why did Burak step forward now? Did the constant speculation become too heavy to ignore? Was the New Year's trip a soft confession, peaceful, tender, private, or a carefully placed statement saying, "Don't speak for us, we'll speak for ourselves"? Tonight, we're breaking down how this quiet bond formed, why the rumors around Neslihan kept flaring up, what that snowy escape really meant, and the surprising details being murmured behind velvet curtains in the industry. Burak is done with the hush. The New Year's photo didn't just end chatter, it wrote an opening line. There are certain people in show business whose smallest nod becomes front-page frenzy, and whose silence is studied like it's a message hidden in code. Burak has always been exactly that, measured, composed, unshakable. He would rather turn away a question than offer a half-truth. He would rather miss a headline than betray a boundary. But this time, the boundary moved. A single frame in the snow said what 1,000 interviews never could: something had found a home in real life. His name has been paired with Neslihan's in countless threads, especially after their renewed professional sparks and the magnetic nostalgia that fans kept alive. The public had watched them years ago, had memorized their glances, and when new sightings and subtle hints surfaced, there was no stopping the tide. That shared New Year sealed the moment. Whether by plan or by simple surrender to time, they let themselves be seen, unfiltered and unafraid. Picture it. A razor-bright winter sky. A ski slope glazed in moonlight. Their coats zipped up to the chin, their cheeks pink from the air, the kind of closeness that doesn't ask permission from the camera. There wasn't a luxury pose or an engineered frame to be found. What radiated through their layered scarves and wool hats was the warmth of two people who know exactly where they stand with each other. The photo wasn't just festive, it was final. It turned gossip into a timestamp. That particular resort in Bulgaria had already been bouncing through rumor circles. There were suggestions, half-claims, vague stories that refused to be pinned down. Then, the images landed. The comments lit up. And the quiet glances in those frames started speaking in plain language. The supposed distance people swore had grown between them? It wasn't there. The whispers of a rift? They evaporated the minute we saw their ease, their rhythm, the way their laughter tucked neatly into the winter air. Why didn't the talk about Neslihan ever fade? Because every time they were near each other, even in separate contexts, the old electricity seemed to flicker again. Their name carries a specific weight in fans' minds, a mark that doesn't age. When behind-the-scenes moments, soft and unguarded, began bubbling to the surface from a recent collaboration rumor and brand work, the speculation accelerated. Fans were clipping gestures, pausing frames, writing timelines. At some point, it stopped being harmless fun and started feeling like a net thrown over their real lives. According to what's being said quietly around sets and meetings, Burak grew tired. Not of her name beside his, but of seeing their bond framed as someone else's storyline. He wasn't interested in letting people use what he felt for views or in serving as a prop in a myth spun by strangers. That, insiders say, is why Neslihan matched his pace in silence. No suggestive captions. No winks to the algorithm. No need to perform intimacy for attention. They'd wait until it felt right, until the moment belonged to them. The first true sign came when the camera turned soft and amber at sunset, on her birthday. A short clip appeared, elegant and spare, with Burak's hands on the wheel as the road widened before them. No teasing text, no coy soundtrack, just a mood, two people in transit together, not running from anything, not rushing toward a show. The internet dissected every silhouette, but the truth was far simpler than the theories. It was a keepsake made public, a tiny window with curtains barely open. And what about the chapter people thought would never fully close? The on and off pages from years ago, the habit of drifting apart and drawing close again, the patient strategy of letting time do the explaining. Those who follow his story know them well. Without naming names or revisiting old corners, those in the know will tell you that Burak made peace with his past in stages. As his projects sharpened and his choices grew bolder, so did his understanding of what he wanted from love. Less fireworks, more glow, fewer declarations, more endurance. It's no secret that his career has marched from strength to strength. Burak has anchored one of the most watched historical dramas of recent years, carried his roles with a leader's weight, and kept his aura as a polished, bankable star. Fans called his recent stretches the era of command, not just in the characters he played, but in the way he seemed to steer his life. In parallel, he sought a rhythm in his personal world that resembled that same composure. Not coldness, not distance, just a choice to keep what matters protected, and to let love thrive where pressure cannot reach. That's why the photos from Bulgaria made the kind of noise that isn't noisy at all. They were exciting precisely because they weren't dressed up. Because there was no press release waiting in the wings. Because they didn't look like a campaign, or a deflection, or a game. They looked like two human beings stepping into a new year with a simple agreement: we know what this is, and now you do too. The reactions were immediate. Some fans cheered the long-awaited confirmation. Others wrote long, heartfelt messages about how seeing them together again felt like closure and beginning all at once. There were those who insisted the moment had been staged. But the sense that spread beneath all the chatter was this: it felt true. It didn't have the sheen of a calculated reveal, nor the stiffness of a forced announcement. It had the surprise of a candid laugh you didn't expect to hear on camera. Behind closed doors, people say the journey to that snowy night was built on purpose. Late-night coffees instead of late-night parties. Clear boundaries around family and friends. A rule that if something needed to be said, it would be said to each other, not to the echo chamber of the internet. They navigated schedules like a delicate choreography, respecting each other's work, leaving space for both ambition and tenderness. When a rumor storm tried to pull them apart, when messages were twisted, when past moments were dusted off and thrown forward, they didn't take the bait. They waited. They let the season change. And waiting changed everything. By the time the new year arrived, the relationship wasn't brand new and therefore fragile. It was steady and finally ready to breathe in public. The mountains weren't for spectacle. They were a choice, a shared love of winter, a way to step into January with clear air in their lungs. The laughter you saw in those pictures wasn't the giddiness of impulse. It was the relief of not hiding a good thing anymore. If you look closely, the emotional trail makes perfect sense. Nostalgia seeded the first spark in the public eye, but real time created something sturdier than memory. Rumor tried to reshape their story into something loud. They turned the volume down and wrote it quietly. And that's why, when the world finally saw them together, no filters, no slogans, the image landed like a sentence that had been waiting for a period. This isn't to say there aren't questions. There always are. People wonder how this will play against career decisions, what this might mean for future collaborations, whether they'll lean into the enchantment of their shared aura on screen or keep it sequestered, preserving it as something just for them. They might decide to let it be a companion to their work someday. Or they might guard it, honoring the fact that what lives in private can sometimes lead to the most powerful performances, because peace breeds focus. The most telling detail from that night, sources say, is how little attention they paid to the camera. Their steps were matched, their shoulders unhurried, their conversation so evidently their own that you almost felt rude for looking. In a world that often pushes couples to choreograph their intimacy for clicks, theirs felt like the reverse, a candid moment that got away from them, then refused to leave the stage. This is the same man who can swing a sword on screen and command a kingdom with a glance, and the same woman whose eyes have carried stories of heartbreak and defiance without a word. They built careers on control and craft. It was only natural that when it came to love, they would search for a version that didn't ask them to perform. A version that could stand outside the buzz, until a quiet yes felt better than another careful no. So here we are, with one image doing the work of 1,000 comments. It says the rumors can rest now. It says the will they won't they has found its answer. It says the distance some insisted on seeing was not a barrier but a path they decided to walk in their own time. You can feel the steadiness of this in small details, the relaxed posture, the private jokes, the soft tug of a glove-lined hand. And the industry has noticed. Friends, colleagues, and old scene partners reacted with a kind of knowing smile. You could almost hear the collective exhale of people who kept the secret because they believed in its right to be secret, who protected it because they saw the quiet care behind it. The few who doubted are quieter now. The ones who always believed are just relieved to finally speak about it out loud. The lesson is simple. In a field where grand gestures often fade as quickly as they appear, the slow burn lasts. In a culture where declarations are sometimes louder than the feelings behind them, the soft gesture wins. And in a year that asked everyone to start fresh, they chose to step forward as themselves, not as the roles people wrote for them. Does this mean the end of surprises? Never. Love always keeps a few up its sleeve. But for now, this is enough, the clarity of a shared New Year's, the certainty reflected in their eyes, the refusal to let strangers steer their narrative. If anything, this was less a declaration and more a decision, to live in a way that makes space for love to breathe. What do you think? Will this love find its quiet rhythm and keep it? Is this the most balanced chapter we've seen from Burak to date, the place where power and peace meet in the middle? Or is there one more twist waiting just out of frame? Share your thoughts below. Do you read that photo as a confession or a challenge? Is it a soft promise or a bold line in the snow? Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Turkish Spotlight Secrets, and turn on notifications. Because in the world of celebrity gossip, every silence can be the beginning of a brand new storm, and sometimes, a single picture is the eye at its calm, certain center. Until next time, keep your hearts open and your eyes tuned to the stories that speak without shouting.